Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Career Talks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Orlando Haynes, bringing you phenomenal guests each and every week to provide actionable advice for your career and life. So, this week, folks, again, if you're not being active on this platform and connecting with phenomenal people, you are missing out. Connected with my guest tonight, and we had an incredible conversation prior till tonight, and I'm excited to hear more about what she's bringing to the table. I think it's a conversation that people need to hear. But tonight's episode is sponsored by the Career Accelerator Planner. You can see it in the background. You can always go to careeracceleratorplanner.com to download or should I say, get a physical copy. If you're looking for a digital copy, shoot me a DM and I'll send you that link. But you should also see that link throughout several posts that I've made tonight. But more about that later. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how to create career access. I spoke with this young lady again a few weeks ago, not even a few weeks ago, a week or so ago, Miss Luz Frazier, and she is the founder and CEO of Lead Humano. I want to make sure I said that right. I didn't say the H, Humano, and saying that correctly. But welcome, Miss Luz Frazier, to the Career Talks podcast. How are you?
Hey, saludos from Lead Humano. You said it right.
Ooh, cool. I was worried. You try to get it right beforehand, and when it goes
Well done.
showtime, you clam up.
I saw you sweating a little bit. I'm like, no, he did
Literally,
it.
I get it. Awesome. Luz, how are you?
I'm doing all right. It's the first day of spring. I'm feeling springy.
Love it.
It's a good day to be with you and everyone that's listening in. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, just like I said earlier, we connected on LinkedIn. We had a great conversation, and folks, just listen in, have questions, because I think Luz is going to approach this from a different perspective, and what you're thinking or may not be thinking. So, but say hello in the comments. Let us know where you're coming in from, and make sure you quickly, as you're listening to the broadcast, follow Luz, connect with Luz on LinkedIn to learn more about the great work she's doing. So, share with folks more about what you do, your business, and who you are.
Yes. So my name is Luz Josefina Carrasquillo de Frazier. So
I'm
by
not gonna.
now
I'm
you're
not gonna
thinking
try
there's
it.
got.
I'm not gonna try it.
I go by Luz. Luz means light in Spanish. For those of you who got that name, you know I am Latina. My parents come from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised here, but the Latino roots are part of who I am. I have been in the discipline, I call it, because for me, it's everything. When I chose a career track, I chose to work with people. And I started off in a call center environment and quickly found myself in human resources. So for the past couple of decades, should I say that? I have been really focused on helping businesses optimize their results, but through people. So it is about understanding what people's needs are, how to optimize their capabilities, how to develop their capabilities. And I've done that for nonprofits, really large global organizations. I've been in learning and development. I've been an HR leader of the function. And finally, about 6 months ago, I said, I want to do more. I
Mhm.
want to have a greater reach. And so I decided to establish Lead Humano as my business and my way of having broader reach in organizations that are looking to really understand and take people optimization. What I mean by that is having people be at their best at all
Mhm.
times, and unleashing them fully, authentically, in an environment that everyone can succeed based on a mission. And so, for the last 6 months, that's what I've been focused on, and it's been quite a journey so far.
I bet. I bet. So definitely love the work that you're kicking off your organization with people optimization. That's huge. As we talked about, kind of crafting what this conversation was going to be, it was access that came out first.
Yes.
Share with folks why you feel access is a crucial conversation for us to be having?
It is an important conversation, Orlando. And, people optimization happens when people are given access. And what I mean by that is that while we all have a definition of what success looks like for us in our careers, in our profession, whatever we choose to do with our lives, we all have a way of defining what success looks like.
Hmm.
Access is the gateway to achieving whatever that success is. And I find myself as a Latina now in a working environment for the last couple of decades, really finding those opportunities in which I was given access and being able to see the benefit of that and becoming really successful at it because somebody gave me an opportunity. And I've also had those experiences, whether it be for myself or whether it be that someone has shared an experience with me in which access was not granted. And therefore, when we don't have access to the opportunities that we would like to see for ourselves in organizations, how can we possibly be our best at what we do? How do you really unleash the potential if that potential is closed off by individuals that make decisions about people and whether or not they should have access or not?
God, love it. Let's talk about some of the barriers to access. Let's unpack that, and then we can attack it from ways that we can overcome those barriers and kind of stop them from happening again. What are some barriers you face personally and throughout your career, and what you're seeing in organizations that still need to be addressed?
Yeah, I like the real talk. I like to be really
Hmm.
transparent, Orlando. And I find that, look, I want to be really mindful about what I'm about to say because it's going to be a little sharp because it's based on my personal experience.
Hmm.
And I can also speak to the experiences that others have shared with me. And what I want to say is that I do not believe for the most part, that people intentionally try to block others from succeeding. I don't think they're like, oh, today, I'm not going to let this person get somewhere, or I don't I don't think people are negative about it. I think that there is
Hmm.
just some undercurrents of biases and there are perceptions and there are experiences that people let get in the way. And if they have any control or power in making decisions about access, for an example, a promotion, a new opportunity of a project that someone really wants to be part of, or a job interview, people make decisions based on their worldviews, and those worldviews just need to be tapped into and opened, right? And so
Hmm.
giving people access means that you first have to get to know who those individuals are. So my personal experiences are that I've been judged immediately just by my name. If you see Luz Carrasquillo, which was my name before I got married and became Frazier 5 years ago, Luz Carrasquillo, I know that I probably was overlooked because it
Hmm.
was like, what is that name? What does it mean? Who is she? Where is she from? The fact that I have a tremendous amount of career experience in my area of discipline in human resources, but not in advanced career, is another reason why I've not been granted access, even though I have the practical working experience,
Hmm.
even though I have the proven track record, but I'm missing something, therefore we're going to overlook. And when we had the conversation, Orlando, we talked quite a bit about the fact that we as individuals want to have every opportunity to be successful for whatever that means to us, and we rely on others to provide us that opportunity. So business leaders, people who are in a position of making decisions, have a tremendous amount of responsibility to ensure that all people have access to the things that they're looking to achieve. And why is that important? Because when you get to know someone and you ask them, where do you see yourself? What do you want to achieve? What would bring you a sense of pride in your work? What's meaningful work for you? and you create access for those individuals, imagine what they can accomplish for your organization.
Mm-hmm.
It's tremendous what they would accomplish because you've given them an opportunity to step in, and therefore they're giving back so much more. But instead, I personally have been told, there was a point in my career in which I was head of talent management and responsible for development across the organization. And I was asked to put together a strategy for development. And what was interesting about what happened, I spent weeks working on this strategy and kept stakeholdering and meeting with people and gathering input. And I put the strategy together and put it in front of my boss. And the response after I presented it was, "And who do you think you are in telling
Wow.
us that we should be doing it this way? Like, where did you get that from? Like, share with me your train of thought of why you think we should approach it this way." And it
Wow.
was, instead of encouraging and instead of just even asking questions and being curious, it was immediately an attack. And that was not a huge surprise to me because prior to that, it was always really difficult to feel as if I was valued,
Mm.
right? It was always really difficult for me to feel like I was adding value because everything I had to prove myself over and over and over again. And even I think this was a test, quite frankly. I think he was like, "Let's see if you can do this." And I
Right.
did it. And my response to that, and I distinctively remember this because it is a defining moment. And I think anyone that's listening to this right now is probably thinking back to a defining moment they had when access was not granted or when they felt the door was closed on them and they couldn't move forward. I remember saying, like, well, I was in shock. First of all, I didn't say too much. And then just kind of getting really defensive and saying, "Well, I'm sharing this based on the information that I gathered by the 36 individual meetings that I had to gather the input of what this
Mm.
organization felt was going to be the best approach to leader development." And it felt good and it didn't feel good in the moment to have to be so assertive in that approach. And so there are so many different examples. I think being a woman and then being a woman Latina, and
Mm-hmm.
look, anyone that's listening to this, you have your own difference that you'll speak to say, "Yeah, because of this, I have felt this or have experienced that." And it's real. This stuff
Mm-hmm.
happens. It's a real thing.
So, question on that. You touched on it several times. If I can ask, was the audience that you were speaking to that responded the way to you that they did, was that white male, or was it African Americans? Was it Latino men?
Yeah, it's a white male.
White male. Got it. And so when we're talking about access, it's multi-layered, right? It's multi-layered, and you touched on it. Being a woman, being a Latina woman, there's different barriers that you think that you possibly, and I don't want to speak for you, but that you're going through. You break through one, and sometimes even as African Americans, we break through one, sometimes thinking we broke through three, and we didn't
That's
until
right.
the next one rears its head, and you're like, huh, here's the next battle.
There it is. Yeah.
So when it comes to things like that, how have you gotten through those moments where it may be you had to kind of go in in this emotional secret place for yourself? How have you got through those moments to continue to push forward?
It's a great question. I mean, keeping it real again,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough, right? You do go inward and you for me personally, it's wow, I'm not good enough. It's well, maybe they have a point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to recognize where your strengths are and what you believe in and what you're working towards in your own pathway towards developing yourself, right? And for me, the concept of understanding that these limiting beliefs that surface at that moment are the things that are going to keep me from really becoming the person that I want to become. And I can't thank enough the people around me that have supported me. So for me is you've got to have your tribe, right?
Mm,
You've got to have a tribe of individuals that support
yep.
you, that will, speak the truth, because sometimes there are things to be learned, right? We're all a
Hmm.
work in progress, but are also going to knock some sense into you and say, stop it. That is one person's perspective. What is your perspective about who you are, how you want to show up, what you know you can add in terms of value, what you know you can bring to the table, and focus on that. And I find that my tribe has been immensely, immensely supportive in that. And I personally have engaged in an exercise when these things happen to me where I begin to journal. It's just a strategy that works for me. And I have specific questions that I always go to is things like, what value am I adding today? What am I grateful for bringing to the world today? And I remind myself that I am not less than, that I
Hmm.
do add value. And I seek out those opportunities to find ways that energize me in that way. You just got to find what's right for you. I've got friends, we, in our tribe, we talk about things, right? Some go walking and they exercise it out. They kind of literally use it as an outlet. You've got to find a way to let go of the heaviness that occurs, right? Like you feel like somebody's dropped pounds and pounds of weight on you when you feel that you haven't been given access or an opportunity for something that's really important to you, just because they have an opinion and not because they took some time to really get to know you and what value you bring.
I think that's so important because you touched on support, right? Your tribe, your group, your support system. In your support system, is it folks that look like you? So they truly understand what you're going through. There's that immediate, connection and like, hey, it's one of those days again. Like almost without words, you don't have to. You can just look and say, yeah, it's one of those days,
Yeah.
right? And they kind of get you. What does that tribe look like for you? And how do you create that tribe when you're kind of the only one or one of few in that organization that are all fighting for access?
Yeah, for sure. There is a lot of similarities in my tribe, but we don't all look the same.
Hmm.
Some are Latinos, Asian, Black women, even males, right? Even white women, white males that get it. So my tribe, I go to this, you know who to go to for certain scenarios that occur.
Right, right,
You know
right.
what I mean? And so when I am really down and I know that it's something that only my Latinas is going to understand, I go to my Latinas,
Hmm.
right? And when I really want to expand my thinking, when I'm ready to, because I'm not always ready right away. Sometimes it's a journey to get to a place where you want to hear, because I have had white male individuals in my tribe that have said, "Hey, Luz, have you thought about it from this perspective?
Hmm.
Could it also have been that they were really challenging you and wanting to see how you would respond?" Now, sometimes that's right and sometimes that's wrong.
Right.
But what the value is in diversifying even your tribe is that you get to expand your
Yeah.
perspective. And if I'm talking about access and the privilege of having access, I want people to give me access, then I too need to give people access to me and I to them so I can learn from their perspective, right? So I try to have a individuals that are not exactly like me in my tribe so I can understand, well, what could I be missing in this situation? What else
Right.
can I learn from in this situation? And in turn, they also learn from me because sometimes they just can't believe these things happen, and they do. They do all the time.
As you were saying that, something popped in my mind about so the white male asking, consider a different perspective. So what would pop in my mind is I would have to first know that there's a consistency that this said manager or group of folks do to everybody.
Hmm.
Now, if they challenge everybody in certain scenarios, then you're kind of like, okay. It's part of the drill, right?
That's right.
This is my onboarding process or proving process journey that I have to go through. But if you find out that it's not, and I think as us being a diverse group, Latina, any non-white employee, we come with a sense of, we immediately within 30 seconds are like, is this a personal attack?
Right.
Is this, a bias attack? Like, what is going on here? I need to know the full scope before I form an emotional, an opinion on this and react the wrong way. So I guess I make a statement to say our white counterparts don't know we go through that.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's huge, that they should know that, hey, we go through five different thoughts in a matter of seconds to be like, is this just the normal process, or is it personal? And if it's personal, now how to react? We're in a whole other space right now. I got to stay professional.
That's
So
right.
it's a whole emotional roller coaster you go through in a matter of seconds. So in your tribe, and I love that you speak of the mix of your tribe. Have have you been in a position to where, or heard of anyone who's advocated for you? Because sometimes your tribe can be just a sounding board, or they can be an advocate for you as well. Any path that took you down either road in that sense.
Yeah, I think when you need the support
Hmm.
and you ask for it and you have clarity on what you're looking for, absolutely they're advocates and they're looking for ways to open up access,
Yeah.
right? But, interesting that you should say that because when I think about who's most passionate in my tribe about opening those doors,
Hmm.
it's the individuals that are more like me,
Right.
right? And that's just me being super honest. It's not that I'm not supported. It's not that I'm not, I think, someone that they want to help get there. I think that there is, to your point earlier, a different level of understanding of urgency
Hmm.
and importance that it's energizing for someone that experiences it versus someone that feels like they understand it, tries to advocate for it, is an ally for it, right? And tries to play the role of, let's look at it from all different angles here, right? So in my particular tribe, and the reason why I like it to be diversified that way is because you can learn a lot from everyone, but the ones that I really count on, that are ones that I can tell you that I always count on, are the ones that look like me or are similar to me that have experienced it firsthand, and it seems to like really energize them to want to find ways to help not only me but for us to help each other
Hmm.
break through.
And let's be honest, right? Even that within our tribe of folks that look like us, we need to make sure we're picking the right people too, so they can still challenge us
That's right.
to say, yeah, hey, Luz, hey, Orlando, did you consider this?
That's
And
right.
you're like, versus being that sounding board, like, you're right. That's what it was. It was this. It was that.
Yeah, Orlando, because quite honestly, I mean, my opinion, right? Like,
Hmm.
I own this. It is so easy to simply say that person's a racist. That's why they
Yep.
treated me that way. It's
Yep.
because I'm Latina. I didn't get a shot because of this. I didn't get a shot because of that. They don't like the fact that I wear loud colors or, my lipstick's too red. Whatever the reason is,
Yep.
it's easy for us to just point the finger and say it's because of this difference, right? Sometimes that is so real and it sucks when it happens. It really does. And no one wants to feel that way. And other times we could be overly sensitive,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And for me, it's less about feeling disempowered by always saying it is because I'm the different person in the room. I want to feel empowered by saying, well, what do I own in this situation? And it's my choice. I can choose to work in an organization that will consistently challenge me and close the door and put a barrier in front of me. Or I can plant myself in an organization in which I can fully bloom and
Hmm.
thrive, right? Because there's more commonality or more understanding, more of a culture of belonging because everyone is included. Everyone feels that they have accessibility. And so these are choices that we make too, right? So I'm not the person, and I'll own this. I'd be curious to know what folks consider, but I don't want to be the person that every time something happens to me, I don't go to my tribe and say, "Oh, it's because I'm Latina." I'm the only.
Right.
Usually, I am the only Latina in the room, but I don't go to that space. I go to the space of, you know, why do some people have access or more consideration than other people?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm trying to understand, is that because of color or because of the difference, or is that another issue that that person is dealing with that I happen to be, in front of,
Right.
right?
Right. And I think it takes that self awareness because phenomenal point. Right. If we're honest, sometimes it could be just performance. Right. Are we going the extra mile? Are we executing at the level that we need? Um, or we in this cloud of thinking, oh, my work is great, and it's like you don't know what this person and this person is doing behind closed doors. That's going again the extra mile. You're like, what is going on? How come I'm always being singled out, or whatever the case may be? But what I loved about that point you made was it does take you to not always want to. You don't want to always come with that first initial. It's the race card. But again, we I think we will forever carry that,
Always.
right? No matter what the situation is, unless we're in a group of our own people. Like that's just how it is. You're just
That's
not,
what it
you're gonna
is.
always carry that. And to be completely honest, right, our white counterparts will never have to fear that or have that scenario unless they're in, a predominantly company that's not white. But
Yeah.
that's not the makeup of corporate America.
Yeah. It's what we carry. It's what we carry.
Yeah.
And I'll also own this approach, which is, and I try to ensure that I am preserving my well-being and my mental health and my energy level, by just working through the situation as the situation is. And I have walked away, right? I've
Mm,
needed to walk away because in my mind it is or was the race card.
mm,
And those are the hard decisions we need to make. I mean, I have known of individuals in my tribe that stay there and or stay within the scenario, and they just, and then with the consistency, we know that it's about
mm,
race, it's about those differences, and they just choose to stay there because of the other benefits. And my point is, like, there's no other benefit than your own well-being and your own sanity. You can choose to remove yourself, because to your point, we carry this everywhere we go. And
mhm.
some of us, I've even been told, well, why are you so challenged, Luz? Yeah, so your name is, you're Latina, you have a different name, but you don't look Latina, so it should be easier for you.
Oh boy.
It's okay, so just because I'm lighter, it's easier for me. Look,
Right.
right? So you got to what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, it comes from all different
Yep.
places, and you
Yep.
just have to preserve yourself. I mean, I was shocked when I heard that, and I'm like, "Uh,
Like, did
so
you just hear
then
what you just said?
my
Like,
experiences are less impactful because I'm lighter."
yeah.
But there is something to be said about that on the flip side, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I keep
Yeah.
going back and forth because there's always two sides to every story.
Mhm.
My Latina tribe members that are darker than me have even more experiences than I do,
Mm, mm.
right? So I get that also. They talk about different types of things than what I talk about. I might be able to get a little further ahead, just a bit more, while others are like right out of the first step.
Got it. Love it. Now let's switch it up and talk about some of the superpowers of that, right? Being different, being, if we even use the term minority anymore, being a diverse, diverse group of professionals. Share with us some of the benefits you've experienced based on that. Not, and I don't mean nothing from government, policies and things like that. Just who you are, and it shines so bright. People like, we got to have Luz in the room or at the table.
Yeah, I think we all bring we all shine light. We all bring an energy, a vibrance, something that can add tremendous value. And for
Hmm.
me, it's my so people often will say we always know when Luz is around because you can hear her laughter, you can hear her voice. I happen to be uh, uh, you know charismatic is a word that I've heard a lot, right? And so I think what's important in terms of your superpower power is to just be authentic. There
Hmm.
was many years earlier on in my career in which I shifted my authenticity to relate to everybody else around me. So you've heard of the term switch coding, right? So I switched and started to act more like others and started
Hmm.
to speak like others. And what I found is when I was doing that, I was less impactful and actually was told that I was less impactful. I remember this. I was part of an executive leadership training. This is many, many years ago. I wanted to be part of this training program so badly in this organization, and I got in. I was immensely happy. I gave it my all in that experience. It was a year, just about a year long. I was a sponge. I learned and put myself out there. And at the end of that experience, I was asked to speak at the kind of graduation ceremony where
Hmm.
very senior leaders were going to be there. People flew in from all parts of the country, and I was asked to speak to that. And I was ready because I was in it, and I got pulled aside about 2 days before, and I was told to remember that as an executive, I should be composed
Mm.
and not too loud, and don't get everybody too worked up, and you really have to show presence. This is your opportunity to do that, and be mindful of the words that you choose, and don't laugh too loud because you'll have the microphone in front of you.
Mm. That's horrible.
What happened? I went from having this like badass speech that I was excited to share because I really got so much out of this experience to really composing myself, and I tripped up quite a bit, and at the end of the I'll never forget it. At the end, there was kind of like a break. Somebody pulled me aside. It's actually a friend, and I appreciate it, that said, wow, are you okay? That was not you up there, that was somebody totally different.
Mm.
And so someone providing what they thought was coaching for my benefit
Yeah.
actually took away my opportunity to just be me, and whatever that was going to create in the room, it's okay, right? Like, why not let people, that's another example of access. Give people the opportunity to just be who they are. What could
Yep.
I possibly said or done at that moment that would have been that disruptive?
Had no
Nothing.
clue what the outcome would have been. They could have loved you even more.
Correct.
Yeah, that's crazy. So when it comes to having advocates, supporting creating access folks that struggle to get in there, you know, we all, again, all groups, we can point out women, this race, that race. What are some best practices that you would share to to kind of guide folks to say, hey, here's how you can help open doors.
Get to know people. I think that's the number one way to break down the barrier of what people perceive to be different. People get really uncomfortable with the unknown.
Mm.
And I think that's what happens. Like, okay, so you hear the name Luz Carrasquillo, Luz Frazier. It seems a little like I don't really recognize that. It's okay. Just ask Luz if she would like to join you for a cup of coffee and say, hey, tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about yourself, right? How long have you been with the company? What do you do? What are you passionate about? What are you working on? Get to know individuals. And as soon as you get to know them, you can already, you said superpowers, those
Hmm. Hmm.
superpowers start to show up, right? Because I'm invited now to be part of a conversation that you're showing interest in me, and now I'm showing interest in you, and we're getting to know each other. And when you get to know each other, that's where the magic happens, because now it's no longer something that I am either fearful around or that I'm uncomfortable around because it's the unknown. I
Right.
think that if we could just spend more time being humans with one another and just care for the basic need of just getting to know each other and helping people feel like they belong somewhere by that connection, there's so much you can learn and so much more you can achieve. To me, that's the number one thing. There's a million and one other strategies, like to make sure that in performance management, you're looking to see if everyone is being represented. Same
Hmm.
thing with succession and building your bench, make sure everybody's represented, and you need people advocating for that, right? And so I think it's about being really intentional and really deliberate about ensuring that there's representation of all, and at the core of that, know your people. So that means you've got to talk to them and spend time with them.
Absolutely. They could have simply asked you, "What's the origin of your name?" And like, it's so interesting. Where did you get that from?
Yeah.
And sparked a
How can
whole
you like that? It
conversation.
means
Yeah.
light. Oh, okay, now I understand why you're loud and
Right.
and energizing.
Yeah.
Okay, it matches your name. I actually was told that once. They said, "Oh, light. Okay, that describes you really good because you're really."
You're really out there, Luz. Makes complete sense. So, what are some ways on top of that? Well, let me just ask it this way: if we were to, because you said there's some additional strategies and things like that, what are some more practical ways versus it becoming a company program or mission to do it, which we would all love? What are some just kind of everyday things that folks should be aware of, to where again how they may be perceived or how it's perceived if they're uh, either closing off access or providing access, any just simple practical ways.
There's two ends of that, right? So there's one on the company culture and how do you
Hmm.
help leaders that are the stewards of that culture open up that access and allow for the environment to um, grant that access. And
Hmm.
there's another thing that we could do. So let me focus on the stuff that we can do, because I think that's the part that we can control, right? I can control every interaction I'm having with individuals, and I can influence the company culture. Uh, for me, what I learned is I had to get pretty brave.
Hmm.
So I I thought to myself, well, if I walk away from a meeting feeling discouraged or feeling like somebody closed the door on me because of whatever reason, and a lot of the times I do feel it's because I'm Latina and I'm not, all these things that they're looking for, but still I have a lot to offer. I ask. So I pause and I'll say something like, I'm not sure if I'm understanding where you're coming from because it doesn't feel right to me.
Hmm.
Are you saying that I'm not capable of driving this strategy? I'm trying to understand why you would feel that way. Or it's calling it out in the
Yep.
moment.
Yep.
It's about saying something about it rather than walking away. So many years, Orlando, I just walked away deflated and beaten up. And that's when people start to disengage from organizations,
Yep.
right? They're
Quiet
less
quitting.
productive and all that. So instead I would just ask, and quite frankly, between you and I, it gave me a lot of pleasure to watch the person go, like, did you
Oh crap.
asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm asking you. I'm asking you, like, where did that come from?
Hmm.
I'm trying to understand. And I try not to be the person that's pointing the finger, like, you just said this and you made me feel this. I'm just trying to understand. I'm really curious. That's another statement you'll hear me use all the time. I'm really curious. What's your point of view on that? Because what I heard you say is XYZ, and I'm just trying to understand it because I think I may be misunderstanding what you're saying. Tell me
Hmm.
again. Now, if they say it again in a way that I'm receiving it, then that's where you make a decision. And look,
Hmm.
I've been in a position where I've coached many individuals, and they'll say to me, Luz, that's great. And I want to be able to speak truth, but that can hurt me. I'm putting my work in jeopardy. I'm putting my job in jeopardy. And look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, no, it doesn't. It's good to have the open conversation and transparent. It could harm you. But that's the whole point of this exercise, is to
Hmm.
say, is it worth staying if I'm always going to be blocked from access and opportunities I need? Or do I just simply understand that this is not the right place for me and I need to move on to a place where I can flourish and thrive? Right? I don't want to just survive somewhere. I want to thrive somewhere. And part of that is to be really honest and taking the steps that you need to take in the conversation and thereafter the conversation that are the best steps for you to take for yourself.
So to that point, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, because in those moments, I think that needs to be a high degree of emotional intelligence, right? When you're in the moment and you're feeling that it's a personal kind of attack, what's the best way how have you been approaching the day, going in and saying, I'm tackling it no matter what? What's been your, I guess, your shield, so this way you don't put yourself in a position where you're out of character, where you are able to kind of assess the situation, pause, and like you said, walk away is fine, versus just the knee jerk reaction. How have you prepared yourself throughout the day, each day, to kind of cope with that? Because I think folks who, as we go through that, sometimes we're like, we'll wake up ready to
Yeah.
engage. Like, if someone says something wrong to me today, I'm gonna let them have it. Like, no, you need that job, you got to pay your bills, et cetera, et cetera. What's your mechanism on keeping you focused?
Yeah, I just recognize that anything can happen at any point, and
Hmm.
that um, I really do try to acknowledge in the moment. But if I can't because I'm just too charged up, I just really do simply acknowledge it by saying something like, I need some time to think about this scenario, this situation right now. And I do walk away from it because
Hmm.
you can't prepare for everything. Because I
Right.
usually am, I won't have a conversation that I know will be charging if I'm not prepared for it. So if I'm prepared for it, I can manage it from an emotional intelligence perspective. But if it's in the moment, spontaneous, and it just happens, I really do preserve myself because it is my brand and how people view my reaction
Hmm.
that is going to either show them some kind of evidence supposedly that they have, right?
Hmm.
or that I can step it up and say, look, I'm above the line from this moment, right? And so for me, it's all about me keeping honest about how my reaction will be experienced. And
Yeah.
there's this saying that talks about that it's not the stimuli, it's the response. So I am always mindful of my response, because my response is what's going to trigger the next set of waves that comes from that situation. See, I told you that's why lose is this and that. I told
Yep.
you that's why lose, right? And I'm not going to give you that. I'm just
Okay.
not. And so I just simply say something like, it's not a good time for us to talk about this right now. I need to process what's just happened. I'm feeling some kind of way about it. Give me a little bit of time. I'm going to circle back with you, right? I just acknowledge that. And at least I walk away letting them know that I'm not happy about something that happened, but
Hmm.
I just am not going to engage in the moment. And if they choose to come at me, I just say it's really not the right time. I'm going to walk away right now.
Love it, love it. So let's talk about it. Lead Humano. You talked about it at the top of the call about what's next, what strategies, how are you helping organizations? Let's dive into that a little deeper,
Yeah.
um, and with your business.
You know what lead humano means? Lead human is Latino. Humano is human. For me, it's taking the 25 years of experience I've had in corporations
Hmm.
and in a nonprofit to help leaders understand the impact they have. Leaders have a tremendous amount of responsibility. And I think many times they either get the job or that promotion and they're happy to sign off on that offer letter. And all of a sudden, right, what they're not recognizing is that it's not the title and the responsibility and that next step in your career and the money. It is, you're signing a level of responsibility that you have for people's success. And so Lead Humano focuses on developing leaders in understanding at all levels, entry level, all the way up to an executive level, the immense responsibility that they have to ensure that people are successful. And what do I mean by that? Is that one decision that a leader makes on an individual in that organization can have an enormous shift in the trajectory of that person. Because you didn't give them an opportunity that they earned to step up into a new role or a new project or something that,
Hmm.
advances them somehow, you just kept them from that advancement, which means that it has a ripple effect in every part of their life, starting with their own confidence level, right? And on the flip side of that, let's talk business. When you don't give individuals opportunities and access that they've earned, or even if they haven't earned it, and they just want to develop and they want to learn, and you're not giving them opportunities to develop and learn and really challenge them, your organization is impacted by that.
Hmm.
Their peers are impacted by that. Their cross functional teams are impacted by that because the person's not learning and developing. The person's not advancing in any way. You've just blocked that from happening. Your customers are getting less of your people, less of an experience because you haven't invested in your people, right? And so there is a ripple effect. And so, what I try to do, whether it be in leadership or executive coaching, I use different types of tools, 360s and other types of tools to help bring to light what
Hmm.
individuals need to know about their management style, their leadership style. And I am really passionate about building capability in training. So I don't think training is the answer, but I do believe that the right learning experiences that could involve training can help individuals broaden their perspective on the influence that they have day to day on people's lives in how they work and how they advance their careers in organizations. It's a tremendous amount of responsibility. And Lead Humano tries to bring that element in. Now, I know every process, every program, I can design a strategy, and
Hmm.
that's good. And I'll deliver that, Orlando. But what I bring is authenticity relative to the conversation. I think it's important to talk to people about the truth, and that means, like, let's really talk about your leadership style and what how that's impacting the business. Let's get uncomfortable for a while, because that's part of learning. You've got to Learning happens, your
Hmm.
true growth happens when you're uncomfortable. And
Yep.
I'm not the type of person that's going to come in and say, oh yeah, you're doing everything good, okay, yay. No, we're going to talk about what's real, right? Like, and look, we're all a work in progress, nobody's perfect, but that's how we get to growth, is by talking about the real things that are happening.
So when I hear what you just said, Luz, and I process that, it sounds like what you're doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're turning managers and leaders into mentors almost, to where, like you said earlier, people optimization. It's not just, all right, how do I have this team that's functioning and doing their job, but how do I have this department flourish throughout the organization? So maybe HR is not for them, but they're a data person. Now they can go to the IT side and crunch data, or whatever the talent is you're looking at. Again, this is how it's processing in my mind, that you're all about how do you just optimize the people in your organization. And if it requires shifting of departments to where it works, to where the entire organization progresses and moves forward, that's the mindset that leaders need to have.
Yeah, I think it's tapping into the ecosystem of an
Hmm.
organization, right? And a lot of organizations are hiring people that are subject matter experts, excellent performers as individual contributors. And they say, do that, this superstar type performance that you do individually, do that with 6 or 7 or 10 or 12, and sometimes they give them even 15 people. And they simply shift their responsibility to a people manager with no experience in how to lead people.
Right.
So I find it to be our mission at Lead Humano to help business leaders develop people leadership skill sets and
Hmm.
management skill sets in the individuals that are in charge of getting work done through people, because what's happening is everyone's getting promoted, and I'm not saying every single organization, but so many of them don't have a strategy for how they're developing that skill set. So quite frankly, when you're promoted to a people manager position and you're a leader in that space, most of your work should be spent on your people, developing them, coaching them, providing them feedback, managing their performance, all of those things. And instead, organizations value the manager that has a team of people that just continues to do the work with the people, tells them what to do, and they also roll up their sleeves and gets the work done. They
Hmm.
don't really know how to tap into the potential of their people and build those capabilities. That's what we do. We help them understand how to tap into the potential and develop the capabilities of the people on their team. So now they're really leading and managing the team, and the team is at their best at their level of performance, whether individually and as a team.
Well, do you have a specific model of an organization you partner with? What does that landscape look like for Lead Humano?
What do you mean by that? Like, did I?
Is there certain is it small businesses, large?
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, startup and small businesses is
Hmm.
where we do our work. It's typically the organizations that don't have internal resources to
Mm.
do this type of work. They may have an HR leader and maybe a couple of business partners, HR business partners, but they don't really have the infrastructure. And
Got
so
it.
we become trusted advisors, real true business partners in building the programmatic approaches and building the coaching experiences, building mentorship programs, really getting in and not taking something off the shelf and delivering it, but customizing it for what the needs are. And a lot of that stems from assessment.
Mm.
My favorite quote of all quotes, Orlando, is a prescription without a diagnosis is grounds for malpractice.
Mm.
So we like to come in and really get to know the organization and ask questions and use data. There's so many data sets organizations have that are telling a story about the health of the organization. We use that data to understand the health of the organization so that we can start prioritizing, okay, so what's the right solution? What's the right blueprint or strategy for this organization's people optimization plan? And that could mean a lot of different things.
Love it, love it, folks. We are definitely coming up on time, and I want to be mindful of lose time. Share with folks where they can find you, connect with you, hire your organization to help them. Those that are absolutely in need and need Lead Humano to come in.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you can follow me on LinkedIn. So it's Luz Frazier. I also have a business page, Lead Humano. I would love to connect with anybody that wants to just DM me. You can also go onto my website, www.leadhumano.com. And we too are trying to provide access to information and other individuals. So sometimes you'll see that I'll run a webinar and so on. But look, I have two leader development programs right now that are meeting the needs and that are also customizable. So I've got People Leadership Essentials, which offers fundamental people management experiences. It's a learning experience, including coaching. So it's training and coaching combined. And then I have Next Level Leadership. We also have early in career coaching available that I'm looking to expand. So I'm very excited in the next couple of weeks to share what that looks like and the
Mhm.
collaboration I have with a woman named Rocio Bravo that we're going to be working together on early in career development and coaching. So there's a lot of exciting things coming. I also do a lot of keynotes and public speaking. I'm very passionate about ERGs, particularly the Latinas or the women ERGs.
Mm.
So I just hope to get to know people, and I hope that I can be of service. That's what we're all about. That's what I want to be about. I just want to make a real difference for folks. So if we have that in common, reach out. I'd love to talk to you.
Love it. So, what keeps you going? I always like to ask this of my guests. What's your driver? What gets you up every day to do what you do?
When I see that someone because of whatever contribution I'm making in their life, is able to achieve what they aspire to achieve.
Mm.
There are so many moments in which just even holding space for someone and saying, let's just sit and we can talk, or we can just sit. When you are there for individuals and you help them succeed, helping others succeed is what gets keeps me going, right? It is the number one thing for me, is to see people really develop themselves in all the ways that they want to achieve. And in particular, my Latinas, my friends, my tribe, and women are a special place for me that I like to spend a lot of time with. It gets me excited when I see them growing and learning and really thriving, succeeding beyond all things they ever imagined.
Love it, love it, Luz. I so appreciate your time, your passion, you being so authentic and transparent. One last question, and I always do this. I say it's the last, but it's never the last. Any final words? Any final words of motivation or thought that we should be thinking about? Thank you, Daniela, for joining. Or Danielle, make sure I pronounce that right.
Yeah.
For joining. That the folks should walk away from this conversation and be like, what actionable advice or thought that you can share with impart on these folks?
You are worth it. You are worth every bit of courage and every bit of um, like energy that you put into what you do. Never ever give up on what you're trying to achieve. Always look for a way forward. Lean on your tribe. And lastly, I would say that it's always in your control. You're the one that can shape where you are and where you want to be and how you're going to get there. Believe in yourself to do that.
Love it. We're going to close it out right there, folks. Make sure to subscribe to the Career Talks podcast. Luz, hang on. I'm going to close this out with a quick video. But, folks, we will see you next time on the Career Talks podcast. Have a good one.
Thanks, Orlando.